You're listening to Empress Conversations podcast with your host, Maggie Peary. Conversations with Maggie. Yeah, yeah. Join us next time on the next episode of Empress Conversations with Maggie. To learn more about guests or for more information on working with Maggie, go to www.mpressconversationswithmaggie.com/get-started.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Empress Conversations with Maggie. Today, my guest is attorney Stephanie Graham. Welcome, Stephanie.
Good morning, Maggie. Thank you so much for inviting me to be your guest today.
Oh, you're so welcome. I'm so excited to talk to you. So, Stephanie, do tell us more about yourself so our listeners can get to understand what you do as a trust attorney.
Absolutely. So as a trust attorney, what I do essentially is I help people protect their assets while they are alive and make sure their assets pass over to their loved ones upon their death. What that means is we put in planning documents in place, your living will, your last will and testament, your healthcare directives, your living will, your powers of attorney, and of course your revocable living trust, which is what has one of the best protections for your assets.
That's awesome. So I just jumped right into it asking about the trust stuff.
Yeah.
But who is Stephanie as far as you want to share? What led you to now start your own firm and get going on your own path? Because prior to being an attorney, there was a life of Stephanie. Tell us a little of what you'd like to share.
Let me make sure I can keep it short.
Oh,
The long story short, I actually worked in banking, pre-law. I worked in banking for about 6 to 7 years, and back then you could not be a 25-year-old VP like you can today. And so I'm the type of person I have to continually learn. And once I'd learned what I could learn, I decided to go to law school because they couldn't promote me anymore because I was too young to be a bank manager. So I went to law school, applied, and interestingly, when I quit to attend law school, they said, "Oh, we have a job for you," and I said, "It's too late." Fast forward, and I end up in Georgia due to some personal circumstances. And it was like I had to start all over in Georgia, even though I had 10 years experience, I had no connections. And for me, my experience in Atlanta in the employment market was not very thrilling. I know what everyone else says, but I did not have that experience. So fast forward to my last employer, and my grandmother passed away without a will. And not only when she passed away was I told that I didn't have enough paid time off to attend her funeral. And never fear, I went anyway. That's the type of personality I have. I'm not going to let my family and my job get in the way of my family. But at that point, I was going to quit the practice of law, believe it or not, based on my experience in Atlanta. I was prepared to just do something else. And someone asked me, "Well, why did you go to law school in the first place?" And it was like, aha. And so it was banking that caused me to go to law school because I had several experiences as a teller back then, managing a $500,000 vault of older women coming into the bank with their financial powers of attorneys or going through divorces, and they found out all their money was gone. And there was really nothing to do about it. I was 22 years old, and I ran to my manager and say, "Hey, Tom, they just took her money." And he said, "Stephanie, there's nothing we can do. They had a power of attorney." And I never forgot that. And so that's pretty much what I'm doing right now. And so I started my practice about 16 months after that experience, after my grandmother passed away. And I could not have predicted my growth to this extent. I've never been happier. It's not an easier job, but I love the job. It's there's nothing monotonous about it at all. No two cases are ever the same. So people like to reach out and ask for their price, et cetera, but every case is different. Your family dynamics is different. Your assets is different. And I feel like I can step into the shoes of most of my clients. I'm the oldest of three. I'm the oldest girl of three. I have a stepmom. I have a stepdad. I've been divorced. I'm a single mom. So I can step in the shoes of almost everyone that comes to my door, except, of course, a man. So I can relate, and my office is extremely transparent. So that is pretty much what led to me starting my own practice. I was quitting or getting fired from job after job after job, where, in my opinion, I was really just doing my job. I'm the type of person that learns and learns and wants to study everything. But I realize now maybe all of that happened to lead me here today to start my own practice, because otherwise I would never have started my own practice.
Stephanie, first of all, wow. And well, a lot of things were going through my brain as you were telling your story. One of the things that, even though you said you were quitting and being released and going to different opportunities, I want to commend you for that, because from the bank, you saw what was happening to these women. You're like, no, this is like a lot. And then
Hmm.
curved, went to a different path, came to Atlanta, all of that, no fear, jumped right in. And that's the type of person you are. You will jump right in and literally take a hold of the situation. That is awesome.
Thank you. Thank you. I think I don't even think about it. It's just, I grew up very poor, and my goal in life was never to be that poor again.
Now that's motivation.
Hmm.
That is motivation right there. You know how
Hmm.
sometimes people are like, well, for my New Year's resolution, I'm going to walk every day, do all this stuff. No, Stephanie's like, you know what? I'm not going to be in this place again. I'm going to do what I have to do. So kudos, good for you. My
Thank you.
condolences on the loss of your grandmother. That was
Thank
definitely
you.
a tough situation there.
It was. It
Stephanie,
was.
you mentioned that you saw women come in and lose thousands of dollars. If there's an average woman, a single mom out there, is there a minimum amount that a person might need in order to hire a trust attorney?
Well, I wouldn't say a minimum amount, but it is typically people who make six figures that actually appreciate the
Mm,
value of
yes.
what estate planning does, and it's not necessarily single women at this point. It's women are the major business owners today. We are the breadwinners. We make the substantial funds, but for me, with my practice, because there are thousands of estate planning and trust attorneys who constantly talk about generational wealth, I
Yes.
like to focus on what it does to your family. And people don't realize what happens to their families when they pass away without planning in place.
Yes.
If your family fights when you are alive, what do you think happens when you are no longer there to act as referee?
Exactly. Yes.
So I wouldn't say the minimum balance. It's who do you want to protect, because there are different levels of protection. Do you want your child to be able to inherit your assets if they're only 12 years old and you don't have anyone in place who can help them manage the money, or who's going to take care of them? So it's really about how you want to protect and provide for your family when you're gone.
Death is never an easy conversation to have, let alone when you're going through it. You definitely don't want to have to think about it when a loved one's passed and now you got to go through things. Personally went through that situation, but it's not easy. So, Stephanie, one of the things that you mentioned was one of the packages or services that's better to have. Why did you say that? What makes it different from just okay, I got to get finances in place. I got to take care of my assets versus I didn't write it down as you were saying it, but you
Hmm.
did mention it's one of the better services to have.
Oh, the revocable trust.
There we go. That's the one.
Because I've been doing this for almost 6 years now,
Mhm.
and it's better to have something in writing than nothing. So if a will is what you can afford, then obtain a will. But what can happen with the will is that someone can file an objection in probate court, and it takes them about maybe $30 to file a piece of paper with the caption of the case and say, "Judge, I object to the petition of the will because dot dot dot." With a
Wow.
trust, it can't do that. A trust does not go through probate court. A trust is a contract between the grantor and the trustee who takes over your assets upon your passing. The trustee has full power to transfer your assets to your beneficiaries or set up the trust in accordance with your revocable living trust. And if somebody wants to fight that trust, they actually have to go to a higher court. They have to hire an attorney. They actually have to sue the trust. Whereas with a will, anyone can file an objection, and they may or may not win the objection, but there's no guidelines as to who can file. So that's pretty much it. Your next in line heirs are based on your marital status, your parental status. For instance, if you're myself, me and my daughter is my natural next in line descendant. But my sister, let's say, for example, she can file a objection to my will if I file in probate court. She's not going to win unless she can prove that my will is invalid. But it doesn't mean that filing of the objection won't hold up the estate anywhere from 6 months to 2 years. It
Wow.
doesn't take much to hold up your estate in probate court, but with the trust, you don't have that challenge. And so that's why it is the safest bet. You don't have to worry about probate court. The other thing is that when your documents are filed in probate court, the investors and the creditors are immediately notified
Mm,
about, well, I should say the investors are notified. Investors hire people to go through the court files. Court files are public. So they're looking for properties to buy at 50 cents on the dollar from
yeah.
desperate relatives who need the money and value the money more than they value the wealth of the home. And then your creditors will be notified within 48 hours and they'll start reaching out to collect their checks. Mhm.
Stephanie, isn't when I think of a huge case in that situation of not having a will, how
Mhm.
famous like somebody like James Brown, who had all these children, and there were all these disputes afterwards. It
Mhm.
was just horrible, and I couldn't even fathom what you're just
Mhm.
discussing. So, Stephanie, in terms of being a business owner, I want to give this scenario that happened, and you kind of give us your feedback. A couple of years ago, I had an issue with my car ticket to a local, very popular, very public mechanic, and it was on a main street, very professional, very good. Dropped my car off, everything was good. I've been to them several times. They definitely did a great job.
Mhm.
And I called one day to find out when my car was going to be ready, and the owner had died, just like
Mm.
that. And just like that, now I'm being told all those assets were owned by the state, and there was a as a customer, what
Mhm.
can you do in order to not to try and cover? Because I had to go through a process to recover my vehicle because
Right.
now that the owner was gone, everybody was jumping in on all kinds, but nobody was looking out for the customer. So therefore, the state had to jump in. But
Mhm.
that was an ordeal. So, what would you say to someone who's a business owner in terms of having a line of what's the word I'm looking for, but having a process so that if that were to happen, unfortunately we
Mhm.
all do have the date, somebody else would be able to, so that your customers do not suffer the consequences of that.
Absolutely. And my motto is get your affairs in order. And most business owners, unfortunately, do not have their affairs in order. You'd be surprised at how many of my clients or my consultations are business owners who have LLCs, but they don't have an operating agreement. They don't have a partnership agreement. They don't have a buy and sell agreement. They don't even have an accountant or bookkeeper or financial advisor. And I am always stunned. And sometimes I raise up to here with my own heart attack. That being said, having a trust plan in place would have been perfect for him. And when you have a trust plan in place, it covers all of these potentials. Whereas, such as myself, I'm a business owner. I have a backup plan for in the event that something happens to me. So, on the one hand, things are going to be frozen for a certain amount of time, especially as a business, as they work out who belongs to what. But at least you have an individual, you have a trustee in place who manages it. When the court gets involved, the state gets involved, is because you didn't have a plan. Someone, probably a creditor, if not a family member, went to court and filed a petition to ask to have an administrator appointed. And if the natural heirs, the next line of descent, did not agree with the person who filed the petition, then they're going to ask for a county administrator. And so the county administrator, at least for me, I can't speak to how the others do it, but I immediately shut things down and I start evicting people because there's usually at least one person that's benefiting from the death that the rest of the heirs are not benefiting from. So, in order to be fair, I kick everybody out
Mm,
and help them understand that they're required to pay rent. Even if you are the spouse, excuse me, if you are the child, you're required to pay rent if you are not an owner of that asset. So yes, having a trust plan, and then when you have that plan in place, make sure your executor and your trustee knows that the plan exists, and make sure they know where to find it. I do not recommend that you share that with your beneficiaries, but yes, definitely create one and tell at least two people, and two people you trust. Don't tell your favorite person, because that's the thing I will always remember from the bank. The women would always name their favorite grandchild or their favorite person as the agent. No, you have to name someone who's qualified, someone you trust to do the right thing, someone who's ethical.
just because you said don't name, I'm going to ask why. Don't name your favorite person or your best friend or your favorite grandchild. Why? I mean,
Because just because they're your favorite doesn't mean they won't steal from you, which is what happened in the bank.
Ah,
Their favorite grandchild took all of their money.
okay.
So it has to be someone who you can trust, not just your favorite person. Your favorite person is not necessarily the person you can trust. And this, for example, when I meet a client, nine, often or not, the clients will ask me, well, which of my children should I name as the executor trustee? And my response to them is, you know exactly who you should name and not name. You just don't want to say it out loud. I cannot make that decision for you. We know who our children are. We know who our family members are, and you have to admit it. I like to tell people we all have at least one thief in the family. We all have an addict. We know who we are. Don't name the thief and don't name the addict. Don't name the person who's financially irresponsible.
That's so black and white, but sometimes it just literally has to be that clear to where, okay, I need this done and we're going to do this right, So,
Yes, but I will properly guide you because, like I said, I'm very blunt, I'm very transparent, and I will paint scenarios. So, would you be okay if child A did this and child B and C suffered? No, they wouldn't. And so then they have to make the right choice.
mm,
Mhm.
tough, tough decisions,
It
tough
is.
conversations too.
Yes.
Gosh.
Mhm.
Stephanie, looking back at this stage, had you known what you know now, going through the bank, going through school, going through all these challenges and successes on highlights, everything that brought you to this point in this season, 2023, what would be your top number one piece of advice you'd tell every person or every woman starting in business or not?
I think my number one advice would be get a mentor. Get a mentor, or what I like to say, a personal board of directors. And don't surround yourself with people who are still in the place you used to be.
Right.
Surround yourself with people who are in the place you want to be.
There we go.
Surround yourself with smarter people. That's my number one advice because I did do this before. A lot of people don't know, mostly because I felt like I didn't have a choice. And I didn't have a clue. I absolutely did not have a clue. So the second time when I did it because I wanted to, I immediately knew that I needed a coach. I wasn't 100% certain why I needed a coach, but I didn't know how to build my clientele. And what I later learned, for all of us who walk around in certain jobs when we're young and we quit because we don't like to sell, well, guess what? Your business will never survive if you don't like to sell. You have to learn how to sell. That was the skill set that I was missing, and I had no idea. Once I learned how to do that, the doors were wide open, absolutely wide open. So, yes, get a coach, a couple of friends or mentors who you respect, whose careers you respect, that you can ask questions about building, which I have done. I do not have a lot of attorney friends. I have a lot of business owner friends that I could ask questions about their growth. And then I think my last piece is hire an assistant before you even need one. And I know that doesn't make sense, but if you have to sacrifice your own salary to pay this assistant, do it. Because if you learn the right skills, you're going to make money within 3 months. And if you wait until you need that assistant, not only are you going to have a hard time finding the perfect fit, but you're not going to have any time to train that person at all. So bring them in from the very beginning. Let them shadow you. Let them do everything, and that person will help you with your processes and your procedures. They'll catch holes that you don't see right away. Kind of like when you teach somebody to drive. We know that there's a brake pad and a gas pedal, but do we automatically know to tell the person we're teaching, make sure you stop on the brake pad, and the brake pad is on the left, gas pad? So do we automatically make those statements? So the person who's objective, they're going to see those little holes that you're taking for granted, and then you can build together. And that person may or may not ride with you all the way, because as you level up, you're going to need different people with different skill sets. But
Right.
definitely hire a person up front if you can, to help you, even if it's just a what do you call them, a girl guide Friday, because you need to take some of the task off of you so you can focus on the business.
That's the difference between working in your business and working on your business and having that CEO mindset. But
Absolutely.
I have to underline, underscore everything that you said regarding number one, because having a mentor is huge. That is definitely, I applaud that. Absolutely. 100% agree with you on that.
Mhm.
Wow,
Yeah.
Stephanie. So, one of the things you said is talking about sales. I think with a lot of women, the fear, or yeah, I'll stick with fear. The
Hmm.
fear of being rejected, of being told no, is very overwhelming. But the
Hmm.
opposite of that is when you get that yes over and over and over again, you
Hmm.
just have to do it. And if anybody, Stephanie, please tell people where they can find you online and on social media, because you do an amazing job in just that, selling yourself and your services and the business.
Thank you so much, Maggie. Trust me, it wasn't easy. I know most people would be shocked to know that I actually used to be extremely shy. And the reason I'm able to do it is because it's all about business. And my coaches really had to push me. And I finally told myself, well, what's the worst that could happen? What is the
Exactly.
worst thing that could
Right.
happen?
Exactly.
So, yes, you can find me on LinkedIn. You could find me on Facebook on my personal page, as well as the business page, Graham Estate Planning, and of course our website, Graham Estate Planning. And we are also a member of the National Black Top Lawyers .org, and TikTok. We just started TikTok, which is very challenging. As you know, if you don't have 1,000 followers, you cannot do
Yes.
lives. And it really tests you, but each
Yes.
platform tests you. I found Facebook was the easiest because you're kind of with your friends.
Yes.
So, of course, your friends are going to like your stuff. But then when you start reaching out to Instagram and TikTok, it can mess with your head a little bit. So,
But you keep
but
going. You keep
yes,
going.
I keep going because it's challenging. I like to do anything challenging, and I'll see what somebody else is doing, and I tell myself right away, well, if they can do it, I can do it too.
Exactly. Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
So, Stephanie, one of the other things is networking. You and I met through a networking organization. So,
Hmm.
which is also important to kind of get out there, but it's so hard between working in
Yes.
the business, doing this, doing that, just to find time, even if it's
Yes.
a couple of hours a week, a month or so, to just
Hmm.
get out there and meet people.
Yes. Absolutely. It's funny how you say that because I just reached out to someone 10 minutes before we spoke because we reached out, I think, about a year ago about connecting, and he's been popping up and messages are popping up. So I reached out to him about connecting. So I don't get involved in the networking groups because their rules are too strict. Their time constraints are too strict, and I just don't have that kind of time. I feel like I have an emergency 3 times a week. So what I try to do is I go out to events that I like attending when I can. It's very rare lately, but for instance, I don't want to give any plugs to anyone, quite frankly,
No.
but unless they're going to pay me. But there's this one association that I've been a member of for about 2 years, and I have not appeared there in about 6 months, and people just sell to you a lot. But I just registered for a couple of events because I said, well, you know what? Maybe I need to go in there with a different mindset myself, because I'm not a seller. I sell, of course, when you call my office. But if we're meeting up, or if I walk into a room with you, I may tell you what I do for a living because they always say give your 30-second pitch. But I'm
Mhm.
not going to try to sell to you. I just don't. I do believe in that. People do business with those they know, like, and trust.
Yeah,
No one is going to do business with a complete stranger that they don't know, like, or
absolutely.
trust. And so I don't typically sell, but I do love to network with people who I feel that we have a natural synergy. But if you approach me with selling, 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 it's an immediate turn off. It's an absolute immediate turn off for me.
I totally 100% agree with you. There has to be 100% level of trust when someone goes into their wallet and actually, give you cash, give you
Hmm.
money, or, punch in those credit card numbers. There's 100% low. And these days, a lot of people are weary because of all these scammers and all this stuff online. But there's that level of trust when you know who you're dealing with. They become your person, right? It's easier.
Absolutely.
Exactly, to sell to that same person, then go out and find new people. But if
Hmm.
you have that trust with one person, then you've got that rapport, you've got that relationship. 100% agree with you on that.
Absolutely. And you have to keep building it. And it's something I'm going to focus on more because, like you said, working in the business and on the business, I am on the business all the time. So I'm building a team now so I can get back out there and build my relationships and make them stronger.
That's fantastic.
Hmm.
Stephanie, one more time as we get ready to wrap up, is there, please, one more time, really slow, where our listeners and viewers on YouTube can find you on those online as well as on social media, please. And any last minute parting wisdom that you'd like to share with us, please.
Absolutely. So you can call my office also for a discovery call. We will explain to people the difference between a estate plan with a will versus a trust. And the number is 1-888-41-WILLS. That's 1-888-419-4557. And we take calls from 8:45 until 6 p.m. We're also available on LinkedIn, where we post a lot of stories about different, guardianships, trust planning, blended families, and we're also on Facebook, TikTok, and IG. You can find me either under Graham Estate Planning, Graham like the cracker, you won't forget that, or SP Graham Law. And what I would like to say, again, get your affairs in order. Just think about what will happen to your family when you're not here. And a lot of people say, well, I shouldn't say a lot of people. I had one person say to me, why should I care because I won't be here? Well, naturally, that's not the mindset that we want, because I'm pretty sure you don't get up every day and go to this job that you either love or hate every day just so it can just go down the drain. So get your affairs in order. And remember, you're planning, regardless of whether it's estate planning or trust, anything that you do in your life, it may not necessarily impact you, but it's going to impact the people who you leave behind. You have no idea how hard that is to have to deal with burying you, cremating you, cleaning out your house, and then to find out that you don't even own the home, to find out you can't even access the bank account to pay for the $12,000 funeral. And by the way, funerals cost anywhere from $7,000 to $29,000. So
Wow.
just keep in mind how that can impact your family. A funeral alone can bankrupt a person. So just get your affairs in order and call us and ask us, and we'll answer. And we also have free webinars. We're trying to start them back up this month so we can continue to educate. That's what we really want to do. We want to educate people so they know the difference. And if you know better, you do better.
Exactly. A
Hmm.
100%. You just blew my mind with the cost of what it takes to bury someone. That is a
Hmm.
lot.
Yes.
Even with the thought of cremation, there's still a lot that goes into it.
Hmm.
Wow. And Stephanie, does your office also do the government stuff in terms of notifying Social Security office and all of that? Who would then handle those aspects to where you're officially like not a living person?
So it's the executor or the administrator. So when you have a will in place, you have an executor that you name in the will, and that executor, once they file the will in court, they will be appointed and sworn in, and they are officially a fiduciary who have a legal responsibility to the estate. If you do not have a will, then that person is the administrator of the estate. So I like to compare it to managing a business. It is your job to notify all the third parties to let them know that the person is deceased, because anything that's coming out of the bank account should stop the minute you pass away. There are no more payments due. Any payments that are taken out of a dead person's account after they die are reimbursable. It is your job to turn off the utilities, but you want to gauge the weather. For instance, we had crazy weather in Georgia this year. So when the temperature was, what was it, 8 degrees Christmas week, you would
Was
want the utilities turned off at that time. So you want to keep the utilities on until the house is sold, but you want to turn off, the cable. You want to turn off. You can't even turn off lawn care because you have to be concerned about code enforcement. So you just have to gauge it on a case by case basis. So if you're in a condo or an apartment, you don't have to worry about the lawn. But if the person who died owned a home, you still have to maintain the lawn, and somebody has to pay for that. And so that is the challenge that people don't realize. Even though you are gone, someone still has to pay to maintain the estate until it is dispersed to the next in line heirs. So yes, it is your administrator or the executor who handle the estate. I'm a county administrator. So when you don't have a plan in place, the court appoints one of us. There are in some counties, there are 2 or 3 people who are registered or sworn in to be administrators. In some counties, because they're so small, they don't have anyone assigned to their county per se, but they exist. And what happens is that person steps in the shoes, and we come in and we, close the house. We evict people. Well, I evict people. I'm learning that other administrators don't. And I don't understand why, but we won't go there. I evict people because it's not fair to the other heirs for one person to benefit over the other. We freeze the bank accounts. We freeze the assets. We put the contents of the home, the jewelry, etc., the cars. We auction them or sell them or bid them. We have to sell the house. We have to clean out your closets, and not everybody's closets are pleasant. So just keep that in mind, because sometimes when you don't speak to your family in advance about planning, I'm all about communication. I say over communicate than not communicate, because for someone to just up and leave and your house has 6 weeks worth of food still sitting in the refrigerator with the power off, something like that should not happen. And just keep in mind, somebody still has to go in the house and deal with that in order to sell it. And these are the type of situations that I run into. Somebody has to clean out your house. Someone has to come in and clean out your bathroom. Someone has to clean out the stack of books. If you're a hoarder, who do you think is dealing with all of that? So if you don't have a plan in place, instructions telling them what to do, they're pretty much lost without you, because they can't focus. It's everybody's grief is different. And I find that grief acts in its most ugly. It's ugly when you're dealing with somebody's estate. I think primarily we all have trauma, right? We've all had experiences in our lives when we were young. And when you're gone, I think what happens, I'm not a psychiatrist, but from my observations, the opportunity to resolve those issues are gone. And people take it out on the persons who are closest to them, which is their siblings. And they start. So with blended family or siblings, keep in mind, someone said to me, well, I was told that you don't handle cases that involve families. And I said, I'm sorry, I'm not sure who told you that, because probate is nothing but family. If you're not family, you have no case, right? Probate is all about blood, lineal descendants.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So all the James Brown, those are brothers and sisters, right? DMX, brothers and sisters. John Singleton, his mother who sued her own grandchildren, right?
Wow.
It's family, and it's grief. It's just grief, and grief is very real. I like to recommend books. People really need to deal with their grief and not take it out on each other.
Classic. What was that movie with Big Mama that had Vivica Fox, Nia Long, and how the whole family kind of, as soon as Big Mama died, everyone it was horrible, just the way the family kind of broke apart. But because it was a movie, they all came back together in the end.
Yes, but in real life, they do not come back together, Maggie. I've met families who, when they lose the first parent, they stop speaking. They haven't spoken to each other for 10 years, and now they're losing the second parent. And whatever happened with the first parent, they won't even fathom trying to reconcile with the second parent. And usually it's trauma. It's trauma, and especially when you have more than one child. For instance, the baby girl in any family is used to getting what they want.
Yes.
But oftentimes, when there are 3 or more children, the baby girl is likely to receive the least if there's a will plan, just because the parents are very well aware of what they do when they're alive. They know they gave baby girl everything, and now when they're gone, they want to make it right for the older child. Now the older child is placed in this position where baby girl is angry.
Yeah, of course.
Yes, they're angry. So I try to encourage people to talk to each other. I try.
Those cannot be easy conversations, Stephanie. And you literally just blew my mind at the thought of so much. I mean, who would have thought that the food that was there in the refrigerator and the lawn and, just dues with HOA. I mean, there's so much involved. These are really hard conversations, but what you do is so needed and so necessary. So if anybody listening, please contact Stephanie. She is amazing at what she does and very easy to get a hold of. So Stephanie, you're a wealth of information. I cannot thank you enough. Definitely have to follow up with you again. But definitely you were a joy to have, and I thank you. Any last minute, this time for real, last minute parting words?
Well, I will add, though I like to think I'm readily available, make sure you call the office or book online just because I cannot take unscheduled calls only because I want to have unscheduled, uninterrupted time with you. And I'm in court a lot for an estate planning attorney, and that's something that a lot of people don't realize. I am a solo practitioner who actually drafts the plans. I actually litigate cases, and I'm a county administrator. So it's impossible for you to just pick up the phone and get me on the phone. But if you send me call our office so we can make sure we do not have any conflicts, and we'll get you on the calendar and we'll give you some time that's uninterrupted. But again, get your affairs in order. Tomorrow is not promised. If you are thinking about a situation, at least have a conversation with it. It's regarding your parents, especially. Bring it up casually. I like to tell people, especially Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving is really the best time to have this conversation. I know you may not think so, but think about any other time in the year that the entire family actually sits down together. Think about it. And blended families, the statistics have not been out thanks to COVID. We don't have any new statistics yet, but I'm pretty sure blended families are well over 50%. And if you don't have something in place, it's going to be a challenge because if your parents are married, but they don't have any children together, it means the dad and his children are going to inherit from the wife, and the wife and her children are going to inherit from the husband. It's more complicated than that, but just keep in mind you cannot inherit from a step parent if it's not in writing. Your significant others, those of us who are living with our loved ones, our partners, they won't receive anything if you didn't put anything in writing. And the first thing that's going to happen is that your loved ones are going to evict them. I don't care if you've been with that person for 20 years. If you did not marry them, that's fine. That's your choice. But if you did not prepare a trust plan or will indicating that I want my loved one to inherit this or keep my house or blah, 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 the first thing your heirs are going to do is kick them out of the house.
Wow. Stephanie, 10 out of 10. I cannot thank you enough. It was a joy having you. Once again, Stephanie Graham from Graham Estate Planning. Please follow her, find her, make sure you book and call in advance. But Stephanie, you have been a delight, and thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much for having me, Maggie. It was great to see you. I know it's been a while and you look amazing too. But yeah, ask your questions on TikTok. I will respond to those. So yeah, feel free to post your questions and I look forward to speaking with whomever calls. I'm here to educate and I'm here to help.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
You're listening to Empress Conversations podcast with your host, Maggie Peary. Conversations with Maggie. Join us next time on the next episode of Empress Conversations with Maggie. To learn more about guests or for more information on working with Maggie, go to www.mpressconversationswithmaggie.com/get-started.